Greetings, strangers, queer and pleasant. I'm not Laura Kate Magnet Dale.
And I'm not Jane Aerith Magnet Dale. And welcome to another episode of Queer and Pleasant Strangers. It's a podcast for two queer trans women. That's us, we're wifey types.
Yeah.
Have a bit of a silly little catch-up and talk about media we've consumed in the week.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm a sleepy little bean. How are you?
I'm sleepy little bean too. It's cold and dark outside, and these are prime conditions for my body wanting to hibernate.
I should be high and bernating.
Indeed, and I am neither of those things right now. I'm
Right.
recording a podcast
Same.
with you. We played some stuff this week.
We sure did.
What did you play this week?
I played an adorable little RPG called Minishoot Adventures.
Is this the one with the little fox that you're playing?
This is
a different one.
this
This
is-
is the ship one.
This is the little spaceship, yeah.
Spaceship Zelda.
What if Zelda was a twin-stick shooter?
Yes.
With, twin stick shooter with, bullet hell mechanics.
This has been on my radar to check out. How was it?
It was a fun little adventure. I did most of it. It's a game that doesn't want to end.
Yeah.
Oh, it sure doesn't. So you can play through it. It's got the sort of standard thing of go somewhere, do a mission. You will get a new power up that will help you move to the next area. And then sort of go to the next area, like the next boss stage. There's like a whole bunch of caves and things that you can explore along the way, and like secret entrances into them. Like destroy all the leaves and fall down a hole. Or do something that then makes a rock move and fall down a hole. Lots of random little cave things, like things you'll see in a cave, and there's literally nowhere to get this. I clearly need to work something out, and then you realise that it's there's some convoluted way of opening a path in a slightly different area that drops you down into this. Yeah, I had a really good time with it, and until I got to the end, and I was just like, look, I've done the final boss. I've done the little bit immediately after the final boss, and now it seems to want me to do something really freaking hard, and that isn't plot. It's just like, did you like the game enough that you want to now have like more of a hardcore boss rush, enemy rush, bullet hell thing? It's like, no, I'm not really here for that, but thanks for offering. But yeah, apart from that, it does a really good job of being like a fairly simple. I think it was probably about by the time I finished it, about 16 hours of gameplay, but you could probably knock it out in about 5 if you knew what you were doing. But yeah, I had a really good time with it, and for the price, I think you could do a lot worse for I want to go on a little adventure being a tiny spaceship and free other spaceships and learn all the lore about why the world is so fucked up. Good boss design as well. I enjoyed the boss design.
Nice.
What about you? Oh, and good music, sorry. Good music. Yeah. There's some really good tracks in that. Some bits that are like really upbeat, like dance style, and some bits that are the sort of ambient music that reminds me of Plan B Terraform.
Okay, yeah.
Sort of wistful ambience.
Yeah.
That's, enjoyed it. Interesting world.
Nice.
I'm going to stop saying I enjoyed it. I did. It's not going to change, but I am going to ask you what you do.
I got back to trying to speedrun Babysitting Mama
Yeah,
this
you
week.
did.
It's been a while.
It has, and you've forgotten most of the minigames.
Yeah, so it's been about 3 years since I last was speedrunning this game. Apparently, my last save was from, like, late 2021.
Time sure has flicken.
Time has flown away from me, but yeah, so Babysitting Mama is a Wii game from 2010 that came bundled with, like, a soft plush toy baby that
terrifying baby controller.
You stuck your Wii remote down its spine, and you do motion minigames in your sort of Cooking Mama style for looking after various infants.
But do not shake the baby.
Do not shake the baby. This game is fascinating to speedrun, because speedrunning is inherently about trying to play the video game as fast as possible.
Yeah.
But this has the inherent limiter built in of the game developers did not want to encourage shaken baby syndrome, and as such, if you move this motion-controlled baby too forcefully, you will get a no, don't shake the baby, which will, like, pause the game and bring up a little menu on screen and, like, force you to acknowledge, I promise not to shake the baby, which in a speedrunning context is, like, a guaranteed, like, 6 to 10 second, like, time delay added. It is a significant time loss every time you accidentally trigger that.
Yeah.
So you're trying to walk the line between, like, one of the minigames might be like pat the baby on the back to burp it, and you're like, I've got to pat forcefully enough that it registers the hit, but not so forcefully that it thinks I'm shaking the baby.
Right.
And this is the core meta of the speedrun. This is a game that I picked up speedrunning for because every now and then I will do a thing where I go on speedrun.com and go and look for games that no one has ever speedrun and go, I'm going to go become the de facto world champion speedrunner at a game.
Yeah.
And then see if I can convince a community to spring up around that. And at the time, no one seemed interested. I picked up Babysitting Mama because I was like, it's in the Cooking Mama series. It's like a thing that people have heard of, but a weird offshoot. It has its own weird, unique gimmick controller.
Yep.
And it was an affordable game to buy online. It was like, oh, I can pick up a cheap copy of this, have a weird gimmick controller, and be world champion at a thing that people will get the idea of even if they've never played. And at the time, no one picked up on this as, like, tried to challenge me for my throne. But in the last 3 years, people have picked it up, and I'm no longer the only speedrunner on that game. I'm now second place in the world on the big category, the All Babies speedrun, which is like a 4.5 to 5 hour long per attempt of the run. So that's I'm gonna need to like find some time to retake that title. But I also previously held the first place spot for each of the individual baby runs, which are like maybe 40 minutes, maybe 45 minutes to do all of the minigames for one individual baby. And I still hold the first place record for most of the individual baby runs, but I'm in third place for Yuto. And Yuto is like the poster child baby for the game. This is the one on the box art. This is the one that the plush baby that you stick the Wii remote in is based on.
Right.
This is like the main baby. And I was in third place after 3 years of inactivity playing. So I was like, I need to get back to this. I need to get back
Reclaim
in.
your crowns.
So 3 years ago when I last submitted a run, my run was like 43 minutes long. My first run of my first night back after 3 years, my like relearning how to do it run was like 46 minutes.
That's not bad.
But by the end of that night of streams, I'd gotten my time down to 41 minutes.
Ooh.
So I'd stripped like 2 minutes off of my personal best, despite having not played for 3 years. So I got back in and was hitting the ground running.
Nice.
I've got to shave like another minute, maybe minute and a half off to reclaim first place. There's someone about 45 seconds ahead of me in second, and then about 45 seconds ahead of that, I think, in first. But, like, I'm on that grind. I am determined I'm going to take the first place slot. I've already worked out at least one time save compared to the current world record holder, which is, there's a mini game in which you are doing baby racing. This is the one with the meth milk.
Yes.
Where the baby gets the bottle of milk and then goes from, like,
Learns how to walk.
crawling, learns how to walk, and fucking legs it. And the time save I've got compared to the current record holder is realizing that if you stop before the milk and wait until the gate opens before you get the milk, you make the most out of that time save and don't like end up having to do a portion of crawling again at the end of the race.
Oh yeah.
So like I've got some time saves I'm working on.
Pro strats.
And I need to go through and retest all the minigames and work out if there's any others I haven't noticed that are quicker to fail than they are to succeed. But yes, I've gotten back into speedrunning. Silly little game.
Have you checked on your ROMs scores?
Oh, I still hold the PokeROM records.
Yay!
Yeah, I've got various games. I'm going to get back to them all at some point, but I wanted to retake my individual level run because that's a manageable one, and then I'll see how I feel about trying to reclaim the All Babies run. Because like that's like 5 hours per attempt. I have to start streaming earlier that particular night or stay up late if I'm gonna attempt a run of it. So I gotta work out whether I want to commit to getting back into losing my mind doing the All Babies category.
I believe in you.
What are you? What have you been playing?
Well, I talked recently about Warhammer Vermintide 2.
You did.
Which I've been playing a decent amount of. Still playing that, still very much enjoying it. But over UDP, I was gifted a copy of Warhammer 40k Dark Tide, which is basically the same concept, but in the 40k universe. And definitely shares a lot of DNA with Vermintide and Left 4 Dead 2 and things like that, but I think it fundamentally fails on a couple of things that Vermintide 2 definitely doesn't. Like, I talked before about, like, I learned the visual language of Vermintide 2 quite quickly.
Yeah.
It was very easy to just go, oh yeah, there's a cart that's at a slight angle, I know I can get over that wall, that's clearly progression. And it does that thing of, like, pushing you forward and putting you in a position where you can't go back further than a certain point as you sort of move through the level, which is good in some ways, but if someone gets, like, grabbed on the ledge and everyone else has already jumped down, there's no saving that person. They're just fucked. So that's always kind of been a thing with that sort of gameplay. But Darktide, like, almost immediately, the first level I played, and seemingly with, like, 2 other people who were also level 1s and one person who was, I think, like a level 24. I don't know how they ended up lumped in with us. But, like, all of us were fucking lost. We were all just, like, wandering around and around the same area, just going, I don't understand what we're supposed to be doing. And apparently we just missed, like, one door that you could go through. And the problem is, like, it's trying to do this beautifully over-engineered, so much going on, like there's cogs spinning and things whirring and there's all this fantastically strange machinery, but that doesn't lead to necessarily well to a language that is easy to follow and understand where to go next. Which is something that Doom 2016 did a really good job of, like, and not just like yellow ledges, like there were other ways that, like, you know, walk towards light, find there was like a language to the levels, and this just seems to be, we made something beautiful, fuck you if you can't find your way around it. Which is a shame, because generally speaking the gameplay is quite good. I've been enjoying the very different style of, like, the way your characters work, as opposed to Vermintide, where there's 5 different characters and each of them has 3 different classes, 4 if you buy the DLC. And they all have, like, they can all get, like, different weapon loadouts. They'll all have, like, a different special. With this, you pick a class, and then you'll pick, like, a whole bunch of different stuff to go with that class. Some of which just seems to be aesthetic. Other things might have other bits around it, but it is not explained. It's like, where are you from in this solar system? What's your story? How did you end up here? What kind of prisoner are you? What sort of thing did you do wrong to get yourself here? And it's like, I don't understand what any of this means, really, in the grand scheme of things. But I have picked an Ogrin who's got a big beard, and they're called Sparkles. Because I was like, I'm going to pick the biggest, heaviest person, and then just going to give them an adorable name.
Aww.
Generally speaking, I've found this one to be okay, but just like Vermintide, I have very quickly just immediately gone, I'm just going to turn off the player chat. I don't need to hear anything anyone else says. There is like a ping button where you can, like, just point at things and go here, or come here, or I need help, or thank you. That's all the communication we need. We don't need to do voice chat. I don't need voice chat from random dickheads online. If you want to do slurs, you're going to have to type them, and then there's a record. But, like, and to be fair, I haven't seen a lot of that, but, like, I don't have the patience. Don't have the patience for that sort of stuff. But, the other real problem is it doesn't seem to be super well optimized. Like, even with my PC, which is kind of a beast, because, like, a lot of it is set up just for video editing. Like, loading the game takes you to choose which of your characters or create a new character you want to be. You have 5 slots. From there, from launching the game to that, selecting the character and hitting OK, to which will get you to, here is a hub area, go and log in to get a level or gather a party, whatever you want to do. That sometimes takes 15 minutes. And, like, I know I could like move it across to my SSD, but, like,
No,
what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what's going on, but that seems like a big issue. And that's not including, like, actually getting into a level, which can still take, like, another couple of minutes.
Yeah,
that's
rough.
I haven't felt like level loading times like this for a really long time. Like, even Switch games aren't this bad. So yeah, that has sort of somewhat put me off. Because with ADHD, there's the occasional risk of, like, I'm just going to play a thing, it's not necessarily going to go well, and I'm going to just be like, I'm going to turn this off and come back to it. Maybe even 15 minutes later, but, like, for now, I want the ability to, like, turn it off and walk away. And it really puts me off wanting to, like, play it, because I know if I get frustrated with something and want to step away from it, or to go and do something else,
Yes.
loading back in again for another 15 minutes is not fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't seem super well optimized, and I don't know if that's right, because it's trying to do, like, super fancy wizzy graphic stuff. Maybe I'll try futzing around with turning that down, but, like, yeah, that at least is not a good experience. What about you? What else have you played?
I have dipped my toes a little bit into the Space Age update for Factorio, which not a thing I'd have necessarily played by myself. It's not that I don't enjoy playing Factorio. I've enjoyed a bit of Factorio here and there. Game all about make automated systems that automate systems that automate systems and don't piss off the local ecosystem too badly.
And launch a spaceship.
Eventually launch a spaceship. But this is a game that I play with small person in my life.
This is your babysitting game.
This is babysitting game. This is game that can be played over the internet and in reasonable chunks of time. Slowly toddle around with a small person, making a probably not the most optimal.
Doesn't sound like an optimal train station, but
no. This is making automated systems with a child with ADHD
who's like, I've been hiding all the coal.
Yeah, there was a point recently where I was like, why is there never any coal in our stupid ecosystem? He'd just been pocketing hundreds of inventory slots worth of coal as a goof. Honestly, was a pretty good goof.
He got you real good.
But there was recently an update for it, and he got the update and then didn't necessarily know that
Understand
that was
the concept of DLC.
of like paid DLC. But I was like, yeah, this is the thing we play together. Sure, I'll pick up the DLC. So what I know of the new update, and this is really all I'm aware of, is you can now. You can start there, or you can start on the planet's surface and like have to build your way to launching a rocket to get up there.
Right.
You can build like a platform in space that's its own automation system that's about like harvesting incoming asteroids that get close enough to you and breaking them down, and having to build like defenses to stop asteroids crashing into your space station and dealing it damage. And the primary way of like generating energy for this system, at least early on that I've seen, is solar panels. And trying to have enough space for like extensive solar panel fields. It seems interesting, and the little bits of the space stuff I have seen are definitely a pretty significant departure from what it feels like to be playing the base game on the ground. Considering how far a world we achieved over probably a year, to have now restarted in a new world, we'll see how long it takes to actually get to see much of that space stuff. But the idea of space trains is enough for me to be like, yeah, maybe I'll play a bit of this in my own time and see some space trains and make some highly organised, obsessively laid out systems.
Excellent.
What about you? What have you been playing?
We played a game together.
We did.
We played some more Star Wars Rebellion, but this time with the Rise of the Empire expansion.
We did, yeah.
So we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. This is the huge multi-hour-long board game. So you have the galactic map from Star Wars. You have 32 different systems and like random starting points for where the Empire are positioned. And then the Rebels basically decide to hide themselves somewhere on the board. And for the Imperials, it's all about finding and destroying the Rebel base. And for the Rebels, it's just about trying to get enough like popularity in the galaxy so as to basically start a revolt, start a revolution against the Empire. And this expansion adds a couple of different things. So the first is the cinematic tactics cards, combat cards. So this is slightly changes the way combat works. Rather than having a number of combat cards for the space theatre or the ground theatre, you'll have one card that you will choose specific to whichever theatre you're in and specific to whichever faction. And that will have two sections on it. One will just be a generic one, and one is specific to a particular type of unit.
Yeah, if you've got that unit in this particular fight.
If you've got that unit in this fight, you can do this one specific thing. Otherwise, you can just do the thing on the bottom. And who knows, you might just choose to do the thing on the bottom anyway.
Yeah.
But it's like, get a bonus, and then it changes the way the dice rolling works. So certain dice mean that you're removing damage from your things, rather than what it used to mean is like you're using the tactics card in a different way. We didn't really get to see a lot of that, because it ended up being quite a short game. I made some tactical decisions that weren't very wise.
You held on from, like, moving your base just a little longer, and, like, I just managed to step onto your base at the wrong moment before you had a chance to go and hide somewhere else. And it went a little unfortunate.
It went a lot unfortunate.
Yes, this was my first time playing the Empire, and I was doing my best to spread my tendrils thin.
Oh yeah, I think you did a really good job of, like, spreading out and like, doing a lot of tracking long before. Like really early in the game, like moving things around and getting things going. Whereas I was just trying to create alliances all across the systems.
Yeah.
And I was doing a really good job, because I had like a lot of systems had alliances with me, which meant that I was basically able to... Well, I had like potentially I had a huge number of troops that were about to become available to me.
Yes, you had like a very large army, a couple of build actions away from popping out.
Yes.
But, because I was comparatively in a bad position army-wise, in that I was spread very thin, and I didn't really have loyalty anywhere. No. I was purely, like, by virtue of I have land troops here, it's sort of, like, under subjugation, but... I had no more than 1 or 2 troops on any place, but before you had a chance to get your big army and do your pushback...
I made 2 mistakes in the same round, and then you just were like, well, okay, I guess I'm going to go over here then. And you went over there, and that's exactly where my base was.
Yeah,
at which point I had no comeback.
Didn't help that you had a card that you misread, which, starting with a C space planet, it applied to, that screwed some things up.
Yeah. It was, I thought it said Corellia, but it said Coruscant.
Yeah.
And they're right next to each other, and they're both with C's and with CO, so...
Yeah. Easily done.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, that would only have got me 2 points. It wasn't going to be a huge amount, Pat.
No, but it would have forced me to have to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
It would have been, you're getting points, I can't just keep focusing on spreading.
I feel like the strategy was relatively sound. I just made, like, a couple of bad mistakes. And I'm not even sure that planet was the best place to have gone to. It was a little bit dangly, and given how spready you were being, I was like, yeah, it's sort of an irrelevant planet. Nowhere super important. And we kept joking that I was on Kessel right from the beginning.
I really wanted you to be on Kessel.
And then you searched Kessel and I wasn't there. I was next door.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a fun time. If over a bit quickly.
Yeah, I'm definitely up for more of it with this expansion. I'm looking forward to it.
But it was the new expansion stuff was interesting. Also, we played like the more advanced version of the base game setup, because it's got like hey, for your first game, just play with this setup.
Have just a couple fewer mechanics the first time round.
And for your second game, there were those things to add in, the action cards, which were quite cool. So at the start of every other round, for the first section, you're picking up 2 cards from your action deck, picking one and getting a leader that's on the bottom of one of those cards. Whereas previously that was, and then toss that card away. This was, and now use the action, or you can use the action at an appropriate point to make something else happen. So it was like a whole bunch of extra stuff going on. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I liked the extra units, and I look forward to a slightly more involved go at that version of the game. What about you? Have you played anything else?
The only other thing I've started, and we'll see how it goes throughout the year, but today I've been doing some of the setup for it, is putting together a little community event over on Discord with some people playing Fantasy Critic. The idea of this being very similar to like a fantasy football league, where, to my understanding, you pick the sports players you think are going to do well in the year and get points if they do well in the sports. But this is video game review average review scores on Metacritic. So at the start of the year, everyone who takes part basically takes turns picking games from the year ahead to have in their draft. These can either be games that we know exist and are coming, or can be... The website will sometimes have, like, hypothetical ones for things like next unannounced 3D Mario game. If you want to, if you want to roll the dice and guess that something might be announced during the year, you might want to try and snipe that. Maybe you go for stuff that is bound to get good review scores, but you don't know if it's going to come out this year. Like, GTA 6 is probably a good one of like, oh, that'll review well. Are you confident it won't get bumped to 2026? And you fill out, you go around doing your drafting, and the way that it's scored at the end of the year is basically, if a game gets more than a 75 on Metacritic, you start getting points for how much higher your score is. If the game scores up in the 90s, you get particular bonus points.
Nice.
If it scores less than a 75, you lose points. You have one counter pick at the end of drafting, which is, of all the other things that other people have predicted, like, yeah, these are our picks, you pick one of that lot that everyone else drafted to be your counter pick, which is your, I don't actually think that's going to review well, or I don't think it's going to come out this year, because if it doesn't come out this year, it becomes a 0 out of 100 for the purposes of counterpicking, which will be potential big points. So you're trying to look through other people's things that they think will come out and score well, and go, I don't think that's actually going to do that well, or I think it's going to get delayed, to be your little anti-pick that you're sort of rooting against.
Okay.
And the last little bit of how we've got it set up at the moment is, at the start of the year now in January, you draft 5 games each out of your nine slots. The other 4 slots are for throughout the year, because like other games might get announced throughout the year that you might want to try and get on your draft. The way that filling up those last 4 slots works is everyone has 100 pretend fantasy dollars.
Great.
And at any point during the year, before a game's reviews go up on Metacritic, you can pick a game and go, I want to add that to one of my slots. And you place a little secret bid. And on Saturday evenings every week, if people have been bidding, if yours is the highest bid on a game, you get to add that game to your draft and have it added to the draft. So when Summer Games Fest happens, for example, in June, there will probably be a lot of, how much of my pretend $100 am I going to put on the table to try and get, I don't know, Wind Waker 2? I want to get Wind Waker 2 in the draft. How much of my 100 fantasy bucks am I willing to put down to try and secure that for the draft?
Lots, I'd imagine.
So by the end of the year, everyone will have pluses and minuses and see who correctly predicted review scores of the year.
Interesting.
Which seems like a fun little community activity to do to have. The thing I like about it is, because the more people you add, let's say only 10 people took part. By the time that you're done with that first round of drafting 5 games per person, you're like 50 games deep.
Yeah.
You're going to have to start picking some stuff that you're not going to be 100% confident is going to review well. At which point you start having your potential underdogs on your list of like, I'm going to root for that game to be a good game. I know it's not previewing well, but it's going to come together in the end.
I feel like you need a bonus for which games will end up on the woke games list.
Right. See, there's a whole bunch of fun ways you can play around with it. So we've started putting this together, and we're gonna do the draft at the end of this week. But we're starting to invite people in to register for it. So it just seemed like a fun little thing to do, to like keep an eye on games throughout the year and make a fun little game of review scores.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a thing I'm doing.
Yay.
What about you?
That's it for me.
Well then, time for this.
Do.
Right, welcome, recruits. I am Commander Alita 1, head of the Transformers Combat Unit, and we are here to work out which of you have what it takes to join our squadron. We will be putting you through your paces, making sure that you are, able to transform and transform back in a moment's notice, that you have all of the skills required to be a useful part of the fighting force. Now, who have we got coming up next as our next recruit?
Hello, I'm Clive, and I transform, quite helpfully, into a 1987 Ford Cortina with a beige interior and a cassette radio that only chews up the tape sometimes. But generally speaking, very helpful.
Can you think of any combat mission applications of your transformation?
How do you feel about fishing?
Could be important.
Well, I do quite enjoy fishing, and if Astro Train comes by, I could probably spot that, yes?
I mean, most of us could probably spot that.
Yes, I suppose Astro Train is one of the larger Decepticons. Anyway, I think I have what it takes to be an Autobot. I'm quite prepared, you know.
Well, okay, let me have a look here. I mean, it does say you do get fantastic mileage to the gallon.
Oh, I do get very good petrol mileage, but I do have to use a lead replacement for Energon.
We can probably make do. They've got some of that down on Earth.
Oh, very exciting. Hey, Laura.
Yes?
We've got a new sponsor.
Who's our new sponsor?
Well, do you want to be cute and colourful and adorable and do spinny?
I do.
Do you want to be warm in the winter months?
I do, and those usually aren't compatible desires, unfortunately.
Keep all your bits warm and look pretty and do spinny with Dressulation.
Tell me more.
It's the company that's making thermal dresses. Thick, insulating dresses.
It's just layers of insulation inside.
Yeah.
You never know.
Thin insulate petticoats.
Oh, so many layers, so many warming materials. I could go out in the snow in this.
You probably could. You wouldn't even notice where the snow is. Also, do spinny.
Spinny!
So if you want to look cute and be warm to boot, then try dressulation.lol.net, enter the code Q&PS warm spinny, and you can get 15% off your first order of a fantastically dressulated dress.
And they have pockets.
They're lined. So, what have you put in your eyes?
I put some films in my eyes.
You sure did.
I sure did. Where shall I start? I saw the Robbie Williams biopic, Better Man,
not Monkey Man.
I wanted to call it Monkey Man. No, Monkey Man was the one we saw last year. That was a very good film. Better Man, in which he is the CGI monkey throughout.
Yes.
I did not expect to sob at that film. I didn't expect it to emotionally punch me in the stomach the way it did.
It sounds like that was an effect it was having on many people leaving that cinema.
Yeah. There were a few people just having a little hug at the end of that film. I was like, oh well. So yeah, it's a film about Robbie Williams' music career, but he's a CGI monkey.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna say maybe a third of it is what you would sort of expect out of typical musician their story biopic. The other 2/3 are really interesting. One, for a self-narrated biopic, it's really not afraid to paint Robbie Williams in a pretty nasty light at points in his career. It is not shying away from the fact he has not necessarily always been the best of people. And I respect that. I respect the degree with which it... And I think, again, part of this, I think, is because he's being portrayed by a CGI monkey. He's maybe a little more comfortable with...
It's the keyboard thing. I'm willing to say worse things.
Yeah, a degree of abstraction that allows a little more honesty about maybe some fuck-ups through his time. And I think that is interesting. It is a story that is yeah, sure, it is about his music career, but it is fundamentally much more a story about someone who had a really unhealthy fixation on fame, rooted in childhood trauma, trying to wrestle with, if I just become famous enough, will that fix the problems in my life? and the answer very clearly being no, but the self-destructive spiral of chasing that. You know, it's a real person's life. I don't think spoilers is necessarily a huge thing. Like, I think I can...
that didn't stay together.
Yeah, I think I can talk a little bit here. It is fundamentally like a 2.5-hour story of a kid that just wanted to be loved by an absent, fame-obsessed parent, and who convinced himself that if I just become famous enough, Dad will love me. And the journey of realization of, not only will that not happen, but I will destroy myself in the process of chasing that. It is a fascinating film. It is a real emotional gut punch to watch if you are someone with any kind of why didn't absent parent love me trauma going on. It is a very effective take on that. I think the Robbie Williams being played by a CGI monkey metaphor works better than expected. There's more to the metaphor than is sort of initially suggested.
The suggestion being that Robbie Williams was considered by the studio to be too old to play himself.
I mean, I think there's... Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, but... Like, the trailers try and set it up as like, oh, I was seen as, a dancing monkey performing for the crowd or whatever. Ultimately, there is a much more personal metaphor that I do think lands really well. And they do a lot of good stuff with that CGI monkeyness of, we can have some real guttural, visceral anguish portrayed that I think any human trying to portray would inherently look a little bit silly. Trying to give that sort of performance of truly pained, like, almost at death's door pained anguish, would come off a little exaggerated, if not for the fact that it's coming out of a monkey. Same for some of the moments of, like, recklessness and rage. I think you can go a bit further with the extremeness of the portrayal, because it feels contextually appropriate. And I think they make good use of that. Also, there is a 5-minute sequence that there's 3 back-to-back scenes that take maybe 5 minutes that are 3 of the most drastic changes between scenes I've ever seen a film do. It reminded me of... Remember what was the Nicolas Cage film Dream Scenario we watched? Where there was attempted sex scene, big fart, something else. Like, that whole 30 seconds of the tone was all over the place.
Short horror film,
Yeah. This has it's one of those sequences that has emotionally depressing, riotous celebration and a multiversal fight scene strung together in a way that I was not quite ready for. Better Man, interesting film, well worth watching. One of the more interesting takes on a musician's, life story I have seen done. What about you? What have you watched?
We went and saw another Ghibli film.
We did.
We saw The Spirited Away.
Yeah,
it was real good.
Yeah, this is that Ghibli film about, we stumbled into an abandoned theme park. Oh no, things went a bit sideways.
Oh no, it's a restaurant district for the dead or for the spirits.
Yeah, for ghosts.
Yeah. Spoopy.
Your parents turned into pigs because they gobbled up food that wasn't theirs.
Yeah, now you got to befriend a young man who may or may not be a dragon.
And find a way to get your parents turned back so that you can go move into your new home.
Yeah, and there's ducks and a radish spirit.
This... I love a lot of Ghibli films. This is one of my favourites.
Yeah, it's great.
It certainly differentiates itself a little from some other Ghibli films. I would say it's one of the more quick to get to its plot Ghibli films.
Yeah.
It's not one of the ones that, like, really luxuriates in its slice of life setting the scene. Pacing that, like, there's something like My Neighbor Totoro that we saw a little while back.
Yeah, it's no Kiki's.
Yeah, it's no Kiki's delivery service. This, probably within 10 minutes, has introduced its fantastical elements, I would say.
Your parents are already swine.
Yeah. It's definitely one of the ones that's a little more throughout consistent with its magical elements, as opposed to sort of a dash of magic, we're back to reality, a dash of magic. Absolutely fascinating designs in it. Some iconic spirit designs.
Yeah, I love the spirit designs. I love the design of, like, the backside of the bathhouse. Like, the precarious stairs that are way too tall.
Yes.
And just the way things are sort of slightly held together in a slightly ramshackle way that give that kind of, like, Howl's Moving Castle vibes of being a bit pieced together in places.
For a film that's largely set in one location, it makes that location a really intricate and lived-in space.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job. And I think it tells a fun and interesting story. And lots of themes of greed of various types in there.
Very much so,
and the dangers thereof to all involved.
I think there's a reason, like a pretty good reason why this is one of the things people think of most quickly when they think of Ghibli's work. It is, I would say, probably one of the more approachable Ghibli films to recommend as a first one to someone if you don't know their willingness to be patient. I think this is an easy starting point with Ghibli.
I think this might have been the first one I saw.
It was, I think, the first one I saw. I think it was a lot of people's first Ghibli.
Yeah, I think this and Howl's and Totoro tend to be, like, a lot of people's, like, intro.
Yeah, which I'm looking forward to Howl's Moving Castle coming back around to see on the big screen.
Yeah, I think they said that's coming back on cinemas in March, so... Again, like, this scales really nicely to a cinema release. Yeah,
they hold up beautifully visually.
I remember, like, a few years back, like, seeing trailers for... oh god, I'm going to age this and myself vastly. Was it Earthsea? Tales from Earthsea?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I remember seeing posters for that in a cinema years ago and just going, that looks beautiful. And then I think at the time it was... subs only. And I was like, I have something wrong with me. It turned out it was ADHD. Would not cope well with trying to read subtitles on something that scale, especially subtitles that don't have like a box behind it.
Yes,
because when we went to see Spirited Away, there was a trailer for some other anime beforehand.
Oh yes, yeah,
and I was just like, there is lots of white, and all the text is in white. It's got a slight outline around it, but that is not enough.
Yeah, I was having problems with that trailer. I don't think it helped as well that it was a lot of really quick cuts.
Yeah.
Meaning that, like, I can sometimes do subtitles if I have time to read the subtitle and then look back up to the scene.
Yeah.
But, like, the second I'd finished reading the subtitle, it had cut to another scene, so I'd not gotten to take any of the visuals in.
Yeah, it was trying to do, like, a lot of bang, 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 scene, dramatic moment. And I was like, I'm not keeping up with this. It would probably be easier if we'd been sitting further back in a cinema, and I think if we were going to watch something subtitled,
agreed,
I would need to sit, like, at least a few rows further back.
Yeah.
So that I could, like, have the screen in view while also being able to, like, focus on the subtitles. But yeah, I am glad I'm getting to see more beautiful anime on a big screen.
Yeah, 20 plus years later, Spirited Away still looks fucking gorgeous.
Yeah.
You watched anything else this week?
No, tell us about Nosferatu. Tell us about Dracula with the serial number filed off.
Yeah, so I went with some friends and watched Nosferatu this past week, and I don't even know where to start with talking about this. Nosferatu is a 2.5, 3 hour long vampire film, and what I can say about it is I have a lot of respect for the ability of its filmmakers to make a single monster, just one entity, one lone vampire, be a multi-hour long sustained threat, and to do so without gratuitous on-screen violence or excessive gore.
Right.
That it is largely the tension of meeting the thing for the first time, the feeling trapped with the thing, the escalation to the big threat and dealing with it.
Yeah.
Of just one vampire being enough of a threat to keep a whole film structured around. There was some beautiful work done on, like, ominous scenery setting to, like, really luxuriate in the build-up to encountering Nosferatu. Like, the plot is... there's some count in some faraway country who wants to come buy a fancy manor home here in Germany, and it'll be a big client for us, but he insists you go do the paperwork at his manor. And as you get closer, things start getting a bit fucking weird and surreal, and things I think this did very well. It did a very good job of making the threat of this vampire not simply, well, he could drink your blood and attack you, and that would be it. They do a lot of really good stuff with... This one being is very good at control and manipulation, and it's very hard to not get drawn in by that. There is a point, a very small moment I'll talk about, where this person has turned up to Nosferatu's castle, and it's been like multiple days of trying to get this paperwork sorted, and it's finally sorted, and our sort of main character is like, okay, well, I think I will go now, and Nosferatu's like, no, nonsense, it's too late at night, you won't leave, you'll leave in the morning. And our main character's like, no, I would like to be direct about this, I am uncomfortable and would like to leave and go home now. And Nosferatu's just like, no, you will go in the morning. And just this shrinking performance of a person being like, oh no, I feel unsafe, but I can't bring myself to just fucking take some steps and leave. Like, that sort of hard to resist commanding presence of a
being
monster.
domed against my will.
I mean, it's a little bit that, but there is something about the presence in the air that I can't fight against that's, like, really interestingly portrayed. There is also some stuff later on that builds, like, building up the mythos of a vampire with the, like, rats as plague carriers, and creating a sort of combination fear there of fear of being bitten and that spreading through a community that is done well. I think that Willem Dafoe does a fantastic job as scientist who started learning about the occult and got kicked out of the scientific community. He's very smart, but he does believe in some spooky shit, and we gotta go get him to help us deal with Nosferatu. He's a fantastic chew up the scenery eccentric scientist.
Oh, nom nom, tasty scenery. And how was the vampire peen?
It sure was. It sure was. It sure was a vampire peen.
Before I knew anything else about what was happening in this film, like even before I knew Willem Dafoe was in it, I knew that there was some creepy-looking vampire penis.
I knew there was
and the actor was allowed to keep the penis.
Yes. I knew there was a vampire penis and rats and Willem Dafoe. That's what I knew going in.
I didn't know that there was a Willem Dafoe in this until I saw interviews with him where he had two other cast members with him, and he was like, I love the rats. I love to work with the rats. They're like the perfect people to act with. It's like, they're right there.
I think I have, like, one main negative about the film.
It's not as gay as Dracula.
I mean, yeah, but I'm trying to work out how to talk about this in a way that isn't spoilery. A big part of the film is the connection between Nosferatu and a woman who, as a child, was very lonely and isolated and ended up creating some form of connection with Nosferatu. And about inevitably these two are going to interact again, and she is going to have to be instrumental in the way that trying to deal with Nosferatu plays out.
Right.
And I'm not a huge fan of the way that her narrative ends. It feels like it doesn't necessarily have as much agency as her role in the film feels like it deserves.
Right.
That is probably the best way I can put it. I think that overall it is a very well done, like, tense exploration of just one scary monster is quite a scary threat. There's some great performances in it. I don't know if I would watch it more than once.
Well, you don't have to.
Yeah. What about you? You watched anything else
That
this
was
week?
it for me.
I think that's it for me as well.
Wow.
Yeah. Time for this.
inside the boardroom of Supremacy Software.
Hi.
Hi.
So, we got problems.
Always the problems. New year, new problems.
I know. So, the numbers nerds downstairs did the maths of like, that new console we're revealing, this is like the good day to announce it. This is the one that'll get us the most money.
Yeah.
And like, we're holding off till that date because the maths nerds say we'll get the most money.
Yeah, it's ready. It's ready to roll. We're just basically waiting for the good day.
Exactly. But people keep leaking images of the thing, even though they haven't announced it. And I don't know how they're doing it.
I mean, we found out who that one guy was who was always taking pictures of our stuff in bathrooms, right?
Yeah.
But, yeah? What?
Hi, it's me, Dave, from the Department of Very Real Electrical Safety Inspectors. Here to photograph your new console to check that it's going to be safe to plug into the mains.
Sure. The prototype's over there.
Anyway. Thank you.
Be quiet, yeah. You done?
Yeah, this will do nicely, thank you.
The important people are having a meeting here. Get out.
Oh, God. Well, thank goodness that's out of the way.
Yeah. So anyway, how are these devious bastards getting in and getting pictures of our console?
I bet it's the interns.
Gotta be the interns.
Assign them double work duty, make them too tired to leak it. That'll probably fix it.
Yeah, then fire one of the really popular ones.
You are a fucking genius.
I know.
Oh, hello?
Oh, that's very nicely priced.
Can I help you at all?
Oh, we've got several of these. Have you these?
We do, yes.
Oh, they're lovely. Oh, very, very nice looking, aren't they?
I would think so.
Oh, very desirable, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
You think you give me a discount? I bought lots of them together.
I mean, they're already discounted. I'm sorry, you're making the other Marks and Spencer's customers feel a little uncomfortable. We're going to have to ask you to leave.
Oh, no. I want the tiny houses. I could make a fortune renting those in London.
Look, either buy them or get out, please. Stop.
Do you know what I want to see more of?
What do you want to see more of?
Brochure Justice Warriors.
Brochure Justice Warriors?
Yeah.
Right, Harry.
Right, Barry. How you doing?
Well, not bad, mate. Happy New Year. You doing all right?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Oh, cheers, mate.
Oh, I've been noticing a thing.
Yeah,
I've been noticing a
what you
thing.
notice, mate?
I've been. Well, this is probably not going to be a surprise to you. I'm sure you're probably aware of this one that's been doing the rounds for a little bit. But kids, the young ones today, not being taught how to use computers, really.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot. I mean, I obviously don't have, I don't have, kids myself, and I don't really have many friends who have kids, being someone who's just not good with kids generally.
Yeah.
But I have been hearing things from parents who, and people online talking about the fact that kids get introduced to like iPads and tablets quite early on in their education. And, they can do stuff, they can read, they can write, but, they don't have any real grasp of how you control anything that doesn't have a touchscreen.
Yeah.
And don't really understand how a keyboard relates or a mouse.
Yeah, it's one of those. I've seen some of it firsthand from interacting with some young people, but also some of it, I'm hearing through the grapevine is that we've had this weird situation where, you go like a generation above mine to, people who didn't grow up with computers, who were a little intimidated by them, and there's a lot of people in that generation who, don't really feel comfortable using computers all that much. Then you've got our generation and a little bit around us where we grew up as computers were coming in, and we're being taught them in schools very deliberately because they're going to be the future. You got to have some awareness of them.
Yeah, I mean you're lucky you actually had that education, whereas I was slightly too early to get that at school. So a lot of what I learn at home or learn on my own. But it was my very last year of high school before we even got a PC.
I think even in your situation, you had the benefit of
you were engaging with PCs at a time where they didn't do a lot of stuff for you, where you had to, if you were going to engage with them, you had to learn how they worked to a degree.
Yeah, we were still using DOS when I first started using PCs, I'll be honest.
Right, then, like, we've got in this weird situation where, like, younger generations are coming through where, like, it's sort of just assumed that they'll understand how computers work.
Yeah.
And they're seen, using iPads and stuff and going, yeah, they know how to use technology.
Yeah.
And
they're
not
getting into a business world and just going, I don't... how do I Excel?
Yeah, how do I put an attachment on? Where do I find files on a computer? What is a file extension? What does that mean?
A lot of that seems to be abstracted, and I've heard that I've not used Windows 11 myself, but I've heard like a lot of that. They seem to be trying to abstract a lot of that stuff away from users, and people don't have what I would consider like a nice tidy file structure. And
Windows 11 I've used a little bit in some circumstances, and it's trying to do the thing that your phone does, where you're not really thinking about where you're saving your file. You're like, I'm saving it in the app, and then when I open the app will know where to find it.
Yeah, like the app will automatically find my music and my pictures and my videos.
And it's one of those things where schools, from what I hear, basically stopped teaching computer literacy because it was assumed people were growing up with it in households with parents who understood how to use computers, and that it would just be second nature. Right. But it's really not. It is a learned degree of abstraction of interaction that, like, if you are not taught, not every screen is a touch screen, sometimes you have to abstract to interact, and maybe there is an importance to understanding how the thing you're using works. It means that, like, there is a real lack of understanding of how to, do things like basic troubleshooting if something goes wrong, that was somewhat second nature for people who grew up with computers that wouldn't do everything for you.
Well, not only that, but, we grew up in a time where if a child were to poke a screen thinking that maybe it was a touchscreen, they weren't immediately going to potentially damage hundreds, possibly thousands of pounds worth of flat screen monitor, which is quite sensitive potentially.
Yeah, it's one of those. It seems like the issue is being noticed, and the thing that seems like it needs to happen is course correcting now before it becomes like a bigger issue.
Because I imagine like colleges are still using PCs because they're more likely to be using things like Word and Excel and stuff like that.
Well, that's the thing. If nothing else, it's people entering the workforce are going to need some degree of, the number of industries that have archaic computer systems that the thing our company is underpinned on. We cannot. It's a house of cards that'll fall down.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, it feels like a thing that, like, cool, you've noticed it, nip it in the bud now and start teaching kids how to use computers again before this sort of extrapolates as a problem.
I hear this is, this is one of many problems. On the other hand, I'm also seeing that some people going into coding are finding problems with, like, Gen Z coders. Because the way they will write code is that they will certainly name some variables, some things that might be utterly baffling to anyone who isn't Gen Z.
Yeah.
Oh, fancy it, mate.
Oh, yeah.
Good hug, mate. Good hug. Right, I think go and have a little lie down.
Oh, sounds lovely.
Nice.
So, Laura,
yes?
you do things that people can find upon the internet. Where upon the internet can they find those things?
They can find those things at Laura K. Buzz pretty much everywhere on the internet. All the places. Blue Sky, Patreon, that's the one that pays the bills. Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, all the places. Laura K. Buzz. There'll be a video up this week on YouTube about colorblind support in video games, and the one big mistake you gotta be careful not to do. There will be some cool board game content probably in February going up on YouTube.
Yay!
Look forward to that. There'll be some new a new Control Access going up soon. Just Laura K. Buzz, you'll find all the things.
All the things.
Yeah, what about you? Where are you at on the internet?
Well, I don't have the unified branding, but I do have a link tree. It's linktree.ee/Janiac, JANEIAC. You can find the music I've made and the t-shirts I've designed, the things I've written, and you can help support me at patreon.com/stonedmonkeyradio. As little as $1 a month, help get these episodes edited and such. And yeah, that's it for me, Laura. Will you sing us out, please, darling?
Until next time, be a stranger.